Hi there, my name is Aaron Mans. This is my audience. And today I'm going to be doing my informative speech. Everyone has heard about the samurai, but most of the information that they get is clouded in myth and legend. So how much do people really understand about what the samurai is and what they believe? Today I'd like to talk about the samurai's origins, their beliefs and culture, and also the impact they have on the world today. So in order to understand the origins of the samurai, you have to understand the origins of the Japanese people as a whole. As early as 4,500 BC, there were native people on the islands of Japan, mostly fishermen, hunters, farmers, hunters and gatherers, mostly primitive human life. The oldest people of Japan are the Ainu. They're actually a Caucasian people that migrated to the Japanese islands from Siberia, and a number of them still live there today in the northernmost island of Hokkaido. The Yayoi culture emerged around 200 BC. They're the common ancestors of the modern Japanese, and whenever you think of a Japanese person, you're probably thinking of someone who descends from this Yayoi culture. And in order to understand the samurai mentality, you have to understand in the ancient, earliest part of Japan, there was no continuous political mass. Mostly it was just small clans warring and fighting over small bits of land constantly. And this feudal conflict is what eventually gave rise to what we know as the samurai today. So early on, in about 600 BC, a man named Jimmu Tenno, the divine warrior, founded the Yamato dynasty, which is one of the oldest political masses on Japan. And he headed a confederation of war clans to invade China and Korea. And they were moderately successful. They never really conquered anything, but they did bring back a lot of culture, which is most important. Technology, martial arts, also religion and architecture, which still influences Japan today. Emperor Keiko of the Yamato dynasty was the first shogun. The shogun is a military commander. He's also a very powerful political figure, second only to the emperor, though in Emperor Keiko's case he was both the emperor and the shogun, so he pretty much had all of his bases covered. His son, Prince Yamato, was brilliant and fierce, and he is considered the role model of the samurai. He was a paragon of their virtues. He was dutiful, loyal, and he was willing to die on a moment's notice, which is the most important aspect of being a samurai. So the samurai class rose from the conflicts of three major clans: the Minamoto, the Fujiwara, and the Taira between the 9th and 12th centuries. This initial war is what really defined the feudal era of Japan and what really, by extension, defined the samurai. They are part of a feudal system. They protect the land and serve their lord, much like European knights. And like European knights, they also receive their income from a lord. In this case, the lord is a daimyo. And they use their samurai to safeguard their territory and to invade the land of their rivals. So there was a constant conflict. And so that's really what defined what a samurai was. They were safeguards of their lord's land. Bushido is the samurai code. It's basically what it means to be a samurai. This is the core of their faith and beliefs. It's the way of the warrior. It's a set of beliefs that the samurai were expected to live by, much like European chivalry, and it's what gave them the authority to do what they were able to do. It's why peasants believed in them and followed them, and that's why the daimyo were able to use them. It comes from Buddhism and Zen Confucianisms, in other words, a product of Chinese influence on Japan. Much like much of their culture, the Bushido shares many similar virtues to Confucianism and Buddhism, such as justice, benevolence, love, sincerity, honesty, self-control, and largely due to the feudal system, they also believe in extreme loyalty to their lord, even upon death. The samurai were masters of the sword, but they were also expected to be masters of the horse and bow. Horseback archery was an important staple of the Japanese military. And when you think of a samurai, you think of a man with a big sword, but they typically wore two swords. They wore the katana, which is the long sword that most people are familiar with, and they also had the wakizashi, which is a shorter sword that they would use in the offhand. Also, when they went to dinner parties or something to talk to nobles, they were expected to relinquish their katana, but they were never asked to relinquish their wakizashi, as that would be greatly dishonorable. And they used it just in case they got into a fight, and they were able to protect themselves and others. they're considered their swords to be an extension of their souls. So it was greatly dishonorable to lose or damage their sword. And in many cases, the oldest samurai of a samurai family would actually inherit the sword of his father and grandfather and his father before him. And so to lose or break that sword would not only be a great dishonor upon him, but upon his entire family. And sometimes they were forced to make amends for such great dishonor. They had a lot of expectations that were placed on them. They were expected to be dutiful, willing to die at a moment's notice, loyal, and cowardice was absolutely not tolerated. In a battle, if you were a samurai and you were outnumbered, you were expected to stand, fight, and die unless your lord told you otherwise. To run away would not only insult your honor, it would insult the honor of your family, of the people who were there with you, and your entire society. So that was a grave, grave, horrible travesty that you didn't want to do. And in extreme cases, if you were really dishonorable, samurai would be asked to commit seppuku, which is ritual suicide by disembowelment. Not very pretty or fun. This didn't happen all the time, but if you were really, really sorry, there's no better way to show it than to cut up and let your guts fall on the floor. That shows real commitment. Samurai without a lord were called ronin and were considered vagrants and failures. Now, as I said before, samurai got their income from a lord, and so without a lord, they had no way to eat. And since they had no other skills other than warfare or fighting or using military tactics, they were often forced to take other careers, such as mercenaries, bandits, or criminals. So it was really never a good thing for you to have a ronin in your town. They weren't very respected. So by 1630 AD, Japan had finally united under the Tokugawa family after a war called the Sengoku Jidai. And as a result, Japan adopted an isolationist policy which removed itself from the rest of the world. They wanted to focus more on their insular economy and also from a distrust of foreign nations. But that all ended by 1854 when an American fleet they came up with all their cannons and basically threatened to blow up the island should they refuse to trade. And that worked, and about that time the Japanese realized that they needed to compete with the Western powers, and so they decided to start adopting more Western policies. And so the Meiji Restoration took place, which initiated several reforms, one of which made it illegal to wear swords in public. Now, as a samurai, your sword is your life, so to make it illegal to have your sword open in public made it illegal to be a samurai. Now, many samurai were quite upset by this, and they incited several rebellions, but they didn't really have much luck as the American technology that the Japanese had acquired pretty much cut them down to the tracks. The sword really is no place in a combat with guns. So even though the samurai no longer have a place in Japanese society, they are still very important to the Japanese culture. Horseback archery, sword training, and other rituals are still practiced today. Not so much the seppuku, but a lot of other things are still happening. Even prominent businessmen are sometimes referred to as corporate warriors as they take the Bushido code to the workplace, mostly duty, loyal, and fealty to one's lord, though in this case it's usually some boss or CEO or something. So it's an enduring mythology, despite the fact that they no longer have prominence in that society. Even people worldwide can recognize and respect a samurai. They represent the values and history of the Japanese people. You see them everywhere from movies, literature, advertisements, and brochures. So even though the samurai may not be around today, they will always continue to captivate our hearts and minds, so long as we let them. Thank you very much.